Indigenous Peoples of North America. So, right now, as you know it from the last piece, um, Indigenous peoples of North Americas or Native Americans are currently housed. About 22% of them are on the reservations. Most of us are actually in the cities. Why is that? Well, it's because reservations are very typically very poor. They don't have really good medical care. They don't have good schooling. Um, the roads are awful. And so usually to get more jobs and everything like that, we leave the reservations and move to urban areas. Um, People kind of think of Native Americans and they think uh, teepees. We haven't lived in teepees in hundreds of years. They're not very conducive to Minnesota winters. Um, I mean, they worked, but not as well as, stone houses. But the actual teepee is actually known as wigwam in my culture. So if you hear the word wigwam, that is what it means. Um, yeah, so you can see right there, there's a typical wigwam. They have different shapes depending upon this the place in the United States. Because I'm part of the Ojibwe, also known as Chippewa or Anishinaabe is the actual correct term. Um, Tribe, which is Plains Indians. So we are more in like the central Mesa area. Originally, actually, we were more in the Ohio area, but we were pushed west where we ended up in Minnesota. And so, yeah, there is like if you go to the southwest, they have a lot of that really not stucco. That's not right. They built theirs out of the actual mountains, so it's really cool. So those mountains they would dig into, and they would actually make their houses in there. So if you've ever actually been to the Southwest, I would recommend because they have some beautiful artwork, beautiful houses, and it's just really interesting to go see there. Sorry, I said this a little bit in the president. Now, traditions. Traditions. We have a lot of traditions, especially around dancing. Has anybody ever been to a powwow? Yes. Powwow, otherwise known as Machipi. Uh, and there are many in Minnesota. The most well known is probably the Shakopee Metawakanton. They own Mystic Lake. So they have the biggest in the Midwest powwow. And it's amazing. It's so much fun. They have a lot of indigenous foods there, indigenous crafts, indigenous clothes. I would recommend anytime to go there. And of course, they have the dancing. And the dancing is beautiful. This is a very um, traditional garment. As you can see, this is the men's traditional. So they have a lot of feathers. They have a lot of shells. I guess it's not the right one. I'm trying to think of what. And beads on their garments. And it's very colorful because they are trying to usually entice a mate. So you want, as you know, in like other species, the pretty ones are the men. Peacocks and ducks. Same thing for names. But women definitely were just as colorful. This one is the women's tradition. Actually, this is jingle dress. So jingle dress actually has a lot of history behind it. So jingle dress has basically little pieces of metal that are curled into like a bell like thing. So when they dance, it jingles. I was gonna bring a jingle dress and then the person I was going to borrow from, I couldn't get a hold of. So, but they're very beautiful. They make some really. It's usually pieces of tin. So just think of little tins just bouncing against the body, and it's just a really pretty sound. And what it is supposed to exemplify is oh my gosh, it's been so long. Just think oh, this is like kids. There is meaning. I'm sorry, I had it all written down for my notes and I don't have them. But yeah, jingle dresses are really important.
Jessica, are all the dances do they differ enough and mean different things? They're dancing for some particular thing
Yes.
in the dance, and since you say it's such a big part of the culture.
Yes. Each type of dress is for each different dance. So there are grass dancers. So those people are there to like smooth the ground out so that you have a place to stay. And then there's rain dancers to bring the rain. They all dress differently. I wish I had my slides which had the different dresses on there and different garments. And then there are, as I said, the jingle dress dancers. There's fancy shawl, which is the women's, and it's just really their. These are the fancy dancers. You know, the ones that you go and watch because they're just so beautiful. And their type of dance is so much different than just a women's traditional or a women's jingle. Because women's jingle is actually pretty. It's like because you're just jingling your dress in women's traditional, whereas fancy's all like, I'm not a dancer. I've never been, never will be. But it's a lot of fun to watch, and when you see them doing it, it's amazing. And they actually have coordination, and I don't. So, but yeah, no, dance is, as I said, very important. So is music. If you've ever listened to Native music, we have a lot of drums, and we have a lot of flute. So, and it's very calming, very sweet. Well, I guess the drums can be a little upbeat. We have depends on what you want. And I can play you. Let me play you some. Yep. I had this. And there's one. So a lot of the music tends to be very rhythmic, and there's chanting, and there is singing in the language, which has a lot of meaning behind it. Men are traditionally the drummers, and women can sing, but that is actually more of a newer development than traditional. So it's actually since. I just wanted to get a traditional one more than. Great. Oh, good. No, it's not logged into mine. Easily reach thousands of. All right, my friends and relatives, as we come forward to shake hands. So this is how we should do it. We come forward to show our appreciation. And this is the typical Native American drum right here. So this is the drum circle. Our own extended family and immediate families. All make it. For now. Now, anytime they worship me, God. Just wanted to give you a taste. So that is a very typical song at powwow for dancing. That one's actually more for a remembrance for someone who passed. But, um, so that's why it was actually a little quieter. I know, you don't believe me. But it was actually pretty quiet.
So, Jessica, are you chants and songs traditional that have been repeated over and over for generations, or do they tend to be more free form, or is it depend on?
It can be both. Most of them are traditional, passed down, because we're a very oral traditional culture. So stories have been passed down mainly from elders to the young, for each generation to come. Usually they have typical storytelling times. So like my kid goes to Hopkins School District. They have quarterly storytelling, native storytelling time where an elder comes and actually reads to the kids, or tells them stories, I should say. Sometimes about native, origin stories. Sometimes just about just kind of fun little native traditions, which is really fun, and she enjoys every second of it. That's kind of what made it really hard as we're losing our language, because there's many languages, and most of them are extinct. Ojibwe is very, very rare now. I can say about 6 words, and I'm like the least linguistic person ever. But it is pretty sad when you think about it. I mean, we were had the whole country, so over 200 million natives when Columbus got over this way. And then now we're numbering in the, including everybody and not including those who are actually full blooded. It's about 40 million that I identify as Indigenous. And probably about 5 million that are actually enrolled in the tribe, maybe. So yeah, music, really important. Dance, very important. Language, extremely important. there is, I want to say there's 1,300 native languages. And yeah, so yeah, it's really interesting when you think about people are like, how did, just a little small group of settlers manage to take over the United States? It's like, well, we weren't one people. We were many, many different types of people. And we were not getting along most of the time. So trying to ask, as I said before in my last presentation, I'd be asking like France and Germany to fight together prior to, during World War One. Like they were not exactly friendly. So, yeah, so there is more celebrations that we do, mostly celebrating the earth. That is a big part of our religion. Is respect for Mother Earth. So it's not exactly, we don't worship trees. That's one thing I was asked when I was a kid, if I worshiped the trees. I said I wasn't a Lorax. But it's having that respect that we live on the earth, and the earth gives us the ability to live, and we need to respect that we live here and it's finite. And yeah, so we didn't believe in land ownership, and that actually came to bite us in the back because when reservations were first created, no individual person owned anything. And then there was what's called the Dawes Act in the 1800s, where they said, okay, now you can individually own land. So they started saying these individuals owned these pieces of land. Well, individuals did not know how to farm. So we're like, what are we supposed to do with this land? And so it actually caused a lot of strife in the nations. So yeah, like when the Western I guess technically natives were really the Western. When Europeans came over and tried to impose farming and everything, we were a hunter and gathering people. So we didn't know how to do anything related to farming yet. And so we were working towards it, but it wasn't something that was part of our tradition yet. Let's see. Clothing. Yeah, so clothing. We had cotton, but I mean, we weren't using it. We mostly did deer skin, so animal hides. We used it for everything. So, wigwams were made out of buffalo skin, deer skin, cow, everything we could. Blankets. We didn't, as I said, we didn't really do wool. We didn't have many sheep, as per se. So yeah, the clothing was like, as I said, this was all deer skin here and beads. So pretty warm, but so it's very durable and soft, very soft. Have you ever had deer skin belted? Yeah, it's really pretty. Same thing for footwear. Oops, I apologize. Let's see.
Footwear you were saying about.
Oh yeah, footwear. Sorry, was also made from deer skin. So I don't know, their feet must have been made out of like, because I don't know how you do rocks that. But I don't think I would have survived back in the day as a native. Just FYI. But yeah, they had everything deer skin and they made it work. I mean, there was definitely probably some differences over in the West, but deer skin was mainly the plains and the East. I don't know as much about the Southwest and the Western tribes, mostly because I'm from here. So my knowledge is mostly about Lakota, Anishinaabe. Okay, so jingle dresses. So yeah, so tribes, what were they? So usually tribes were led by a chieftain. Sometimes chieftainess. Some were matriarchal, some were patriarchal. Most of them are patriarchal, but and they ruled sometimes with a council. But gender roles, men typically were the hunter, and women did mostly the gathering. So corn and different produce that were around then. But it was less uh, concrete, I guess you could say. So women could be hunters if they wanted to be. They could be warriors. It was definitely, you could be whatever you needed to be, because tribes, they lived off the land, so we needed to adapt to the environment. So if it's a hard winter, it did what you had to do. Marriage, a lot of it. I mean, we believed in marriage, but we didn't have no priests. So it was mostly done by the chieftain. They would marry. Um, but yes, as it says, polygamy did happen, because again, tribes are very insular. So sometimes you didn't have a lot of men or women. So as I said, oh boy, I should have read this one better. Religion, mostly about nature. As we got colonized, we did come under more Episcopalian. There's a lot, but that is not traditional to our culture. So, um, as I said, just be respectful. I mean, don't make the assumption. You can ask, just like you do now, right? You don't make an assumption if somebody's Christian. You just, okay, how's it going? But yeah, a lot of it is just all about respecting the earth. So, and we didn't typically have gods or anything like that, or it was more just a respect for the elements in nature itself.
But wasn't there I get some info from novels, like Native American stories or whatever, and wasn't there still a supreme,
There's
something or other in the respect for the earth, that the earth was given by still some?
Yes, it wasn't really labeled God or anything like that, but it was called the Great Spirit. So the Great Spirit is just this overarching thing that provided us the earth, that gave us everything. And so we respect the Great Spirit, and the Great Spirit provided. So it was not something that came easy to Westerners to understand, because the spirit, that it was very vague. But the Great Spirit created humans out of a cave in Lakota culture. That cave is in South Dakota, and now it has Mount Rushmore on it. But there's also turtles involved in some creation stories, which are really cool. And but it's all about the spirit provides, and it creates, and it can take away. So, oh. Discrimination. That's kind of nuts. We don't want to go over today. Anything else you want us to cover? Because as I said, that's in this presentation. Yes.
In the tradition, Native American belief tradition, what do they feel happens when people die? Do their spirits live on?
Basically, you become part of the Great Spirit.
Okay.
So it's we were of the earth, and then we go back to the earth.
Oh, okay.
So that's part of the reason why we respect the earth so much, because that has the spirit of our ancestors are part of it, and they can speak to us through the earth, the wind, and yeah, because I mean, there's good spirits and there's bad spirits. I don't know how you guys have heard of sage, right? So sage is a herb that we use to cleanse our houses and ourselves of bad spirits and to help us welcome good spirits back. So as I tell Clementine, I sage the house regularly because I'm like, I want to keep grandma around, but I don't need any bad spirits coming around, So she sometimes tells me of nightmares she has. So we have what's called a dream catcher. I'm guessing most of you have heard of a dream catcher. So a dream catcher it's a web. Here we go. Pull a picture of it. So typically with dream catchers, there's a web, and they have beads on there, and the beads represent the bad dreams. And good dreams go through the holes. So it's all about your bad dreams get caught, and your good dreams go through. So that's pretty nice. And then the feathers are just very traditional to our culture. Eagle feathers are sacred. Eagles are sacred to our culture. Eagle feathers, you'll see some of them on the dress that we wear, especially when dancing. But usually they have to be earned. You cannot just wear an eagle feather. So a lot of the cultural appropriation you'll hear from natives is the fact that people who have not earned it have been wearing eagle feathers because they think it's cool. And it's not cool. It's spitting in this space of tradition. It's tradition. Because warriors are the ones that used to wear the eagle feathers. And of course, nowadays, there's not much in the way of warriors and natives, but it does happen. So now it's, I think, more dance related. So yeah, it's pretty, wanted to show. So this is a fancy shawl dancer. I said that the shawl is beautiful, and they dance with that very air-like, and they're just very graceful, and they have very specific footsteps that they do. They wear beaded feet or shoes. So, and then they have bones instead. This is a different type of dancer. I can't remember what kind. And they'll have entire vests, or she gets like a necklace all the way to the floor. And it's just, there's a lot of different garments here. Yeah, and then this is men's fancy, and he's doing a fancy war dance. So, but you can see that he has eagle feather. So that's because that is part of the regalia for fancy. And they also have these like bones coming out in a. Pull up a bigger picture of this. Oh. Is that? Oh, yeah, there it is. So this is very typical for fancy dress for men. This is fancy shawl for women. Here's men. So they have a lot. They sweat like Jesus. Sorry, I'm just telling you. The fancy shawl, and it's all the layers. But it's just so beautiful, and I would recommend anybody to even try the Metawakaton one. It's just on the Shakopee. It's typically the second Saturday in August, like around the 15th. But I would recommend it. It's beautiful. They have native tacos, which are amazing because it has fry bread. But yeah, foods. I guess I can talk about food because that's culture-wise. Food. Buffalo was a tip, was actually a very sacred animal to us, but we like to eat it because, of course, it was plentiful back in the day. And very lean and very healthy for you. So bison burgers and stuff like that we still eat a lot of, even though it's very expensive in the grocery store. Wild rice, if none of you have had that, I'd recommend it. It's a very healthy form of grain. It's actually a seed, not a form of rice, but it is very delicious with some butter and salt. Yeah, so basically any animal that you can think of that was native to North America, definitely ate. So fish, walleye, especially up here. You know, they love their walleye. I can't stand fish, so I'm a very bad baby. But yeah, so I mean, a lot of it. If you've ever heard of Awami,
Yeah. Oh, the restaurant.
the restaurant.
Yes.
He is a James Beard Award-winning chef, and he uses all natural ingredients. So he is called the sous chef. And I would recommend if you can get a reservation there, go because his food is to die for, and it is native inspired food. He uses all natural ingredients, nothing fake, and it's really delicious. So I had something catered for them, and I was like, wow. So, but he has another restaurant, but I can't remember the name of it. But anytime you can go, I recommend. And then, of course, fry bread is also a staple. That's kind of like a puffy flatbread that we make that's fried. And you just put whatever you want on it. It can be sweet, it can be savory in a taco form. And I'm happy as can be when I eat it. I do make it often. And my kid loves it, so. Let's see, I'm trying to think of any other topics you want me to cover. Yes.
Wanted to go back to what you said about the, how the languages are disappearing, and I work in a school, and our district probably within the last 5 years has really put a larger emphasis on Native culture and rebuilding those connections and rebuilding the communities. And I'm just wondering, like, how you feel about, like, do you see that or do you not? I mean, do you feel like things are still declining in Native culture, or are there places where it's building back up?
Both. It really depends on where you are. I think Minnesota is doing a really good job on reparations. We're one of the better states for identifying where we went wrong and how we can help repair the relationship and improve the native, culture understanding and like language learners. Like they have started doing a lot of offering Ojibwe language, Lakota language, and it's really nice. But it's still a very dying language, so it might be too late. So that's just the fact. It's just we've been declining so much right now, and like there's not many true full-blooded natives left. Like my tribe, Red Lake, which is one of the larger tribes in the United States, not the United States, in Minnesota. Actually, I think it might be the largest. Is the second poorest, and we had to change the enrollment standards because we ran out of natives, full blood. So they opened it up. So now I'm actually considered a quarter instead of an eighth. And what's funny is I'm also an eighth of a different tribe and an eighth of another tribe. But they're not. They don't come together. So I might be closer to 3A's native, but I'm only counted true 3A's, but I'm only counted as a quarter. So,
The language is expanding because they're using computers
yeah,
and
totally.
and I think there's one of them is a Lucas doing all this and images and everything.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's great. I think that if we can do it, that'd be amazing. But again, liberal arts is declining. There's no money in it. Like, who's going to study it? It's just sad. Like that, everything is so expensive nowadays that I just don't see how anybody can truly concentrate on such a small topic that doesn't bring home the bacon. So I'm just being realistic more than what I would like. In a happy world, yes, I think everybody should be able to study something that they love. And languages, a lot of people love language, but who's going to talk to you in a good way? Because that's how you learn. Like, not many people speak it. I mean, I took 7 years of Spanish to be able to order a margarita in Mexico. So, but so, any other questions?
There's it, what's it like in rural Minnesota compared to tribal relations and relationships? My perception has always been rural, but outside of, let's say, Bemidji, Cass Lake, Monoman, very us them, very white European, white American, and the upper.
Yeah,
And has that changed at all, or is that still pretty prevalent?
it's very prevalent. It's the same thing as South Dakota, in North Dakota. So it's really, it's always been like that, cultural seeks the same. So, and if you're not, we have a lot of unconscious bias. So even though you call yourself not racist, you'd be surprised how actually undercurrently you're still a little bit weary of other people that are different than you. So, I mean, and I'm definitely one of, I recognize that I have some racist tendencies towards that I never thought I did because I've always been very accepting. But it's just like I will cross the street if I see someone that I think is kind of weird. And I'm like, why? What makes them weird? The color of their skin? Their dress? Like, I don't know anything about this person. Why did I just cross the street? But safety comes first. So, and a lot of that is what happens is there's just so much divide right now, and there's not enough communication between the two. Like if you even look at back in like the 1990s TV shows where they had the reservation police and they had the white police, and they always had to have. They always had to have the reservation police have to find the killer that's native and blah blah blah. It's still the case, unfortunately. It's getting a little better, but there's just so much racism and bias against people of other skin color. It's unfortunate.
I think the racist even became tribes.
Oh, definitely.
I asked a friend of mine how they could get together in the country, and she said all tribes would have to do it in order to get into the country and work and so on. One tribe can't do it alone.
Exactly. That's why we lost, because we couldn't get together. But yeah, no, it's unfortunate. Like we have some tribes that have sovereignty, so they are considered their own nation. Red Lake is one of them. There's a few others, of course, but there's not a lot. So, But yeah, they are different from each other. They're different traditions. They're similar, but they're not the same. So yes, there is some bias against, like, Red Lake is seen as the crazy one. I believe it. It's true. There's like uh, Boyd Fort is the one with the nice casino up by Lake Vermilion, and then you got, of course, Metawankaton, the rich beach, and so it's pretty interesting, even in Minnesota, how much you hear the tribe name, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely, people think natives and, oh, you're all friends together because you're native. No. Nope.
Um, does the Mdewakanton tribe support other reservations, and help them out? Like, I don't know, Cass Lake or.
Yeah, they do a bit. I mean, they're pretty helpful. Like Red Lake just had their Christmas party, and we had it at Mystic. And we get a very good discount from them, and they offer discounts to natives to stay at hotel, different things like that. So they are actually pretty generous. I mean, not overly, but considering the fact that they could not give anything, they're pretty generous. So, no, I mean, they're actually one of the less. I'm just jealous of them. I tell you, I can make one, right? No, they're pretty nice. So
I live across the street from the reservation when walking on the truck. Part of it, they have a lot of land here.
yeah,
And they are doing a lot of stuff to be a little more self-sustaining. I mean, and I think they're sovereign.
I don't remember. I didn't
I
think
know
so.
I
It's
was
like
shocked these city rules do not apply.
okay, maybe they are.
And they have their own fire department, police department, and they have done a lot of prairie restoration in the area that I'm at, where it could have been bought, the property they bought up farms, and they would replant them, and they introduced, I heard of bison. There's, half a block of my house, I can find 10 bison up there, but I don't watch the dog.
It's pretty interesting because actually, has everybody remember the name Calhoun, right? He was a governor here. He ordered all bison to be run out and killed in Minnesota. Or was that Selby? One of the two. And the reason is he wanted the Lakota to leave. Yep.
Was that Calhoun?
That was
you said? Was that
It was
Calhoun?
Calhoun or Selby. Can't remember which one it was, but it was.
Wow.
So like every time, or Sibley, because every time I drove on the road or drove by the lake, I was like,
I was going to ask along that line. So renaming the lake
yep.
in Minneapolis, to Pwedemawkaskat, how is that viewed?
It's deemed favorable mostly because what they're trying to do is trying to remove the reminders of these governors. Like one of those governors, again, that's the Fort Snelling where they put all the natives. That was either Sibley or sorry, yeah, Sibley or Kevin. So, like, I would love those two to be renamed. And, Pwedemawkaskat is awesome because that is the name of the lake that it was for a long time before it became Kellen. Yes.
I sometimes wonder, since I'm one of the people that grew up on an Indian reservation.
Oh, cool.
I grew up out in North Dakota on the Fort Houghton Indian Reservation up by Anishinaabe and little town of Cheyenne that I grew up in. And how did it happen that my wife's my mother's side of the family ended up homesteading somehow on the Indian reservation and ended up like I would say about 20 years ago, we ended up selling the piece of land which was they somehow got from the Indian reservation. the government must have made some deal for homesteading and put things there.
Yep.
Because I don't know how else we'd have gotten where we were there.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what had happens is they would buy the land from the reservation or they would just take the land. Depends on when it was, or and usually it was cheaper, and yeah, they would just give it to whoever wanted it. That's how reservations are formed.
It caused a lot of hard feelings for in some parts of that country because of where I grew up, because the white people that ended up settling there, somehow or another, the Native American tribes kept the rights to, were able to keep the rights of hunting and fishing.
Yep.
And do that at any time of the year. And of course, when
That's kind of a weird.
didn't sit very good with the white people that were hunters because they could only shoot deer at a certain time. And
Yep.
it was quite a situation to grow up in a community that was
Basically.
a lot of Native Americans. We didn't physically have problems with them to amount to anything. They built a school for, well, I think the government did, called Fort Totten High School out there up by Devil's Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that were Native Americans could go to that school. But it seemed like when a little town of Cheyenne where I grew up, they said the Native Americans, a lot of them would rather go to school there than to the school in Fort Totten where they could go free. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is you don't want to leave home. And there's a lot of shame on leaving home. In Lakota, like Pine Ridge and Rosebud, if you leave the reservation, you're betraying your family. But there's no jobs. Like they have to. There's no way. But yes, they have college, but there's a limited education there. So it's like a catch-22 for them. They want to help out their family by making money for their family, but they're betraying their family by leaving. So it's been a real hard time for young people lately. For 20 years, it's been hard because it's just been seen as a betrayal of the tradition to leave home. But the unemployment rate on Rosebud was 83%. Yep, it's the highest unemployment rate in the country, along with Pine Ridge. So yeah, yeah. So when people say, "Oh, it's the lowest unemployment rate in history," it's just like, well, not everywhere. Yeah.
I'm under the impression that the University of Minnesota Morris campus is considered an indigenous school for Native Americans in that they have access to free education. Am I wrong on that?
There's a couple colleges in Minnesota that allows for free Indigenous education as long as you're enrolled in a tribe. So it's really nice. Like Augsburg allows that. I do believe Morris is one of them. Yes. Red Lake Nation College just became a thing. And they teach a lot of Indigenous history and everything, and art. And so yeah, it's becoming more outspoken, which is great. But as I said, it's definitely like people don't know about it. It's like there's a lot of grants out there for education for natives that don't get used because people don't know about it. So it's all about searching for those resources that you're able to. So I've actually been being a proponent towards my family members. I'm like, hey, do you want to go to college? You don't have the money? Look at these choices. You might not have the degree you want, but you can do your generals. And then maybe switch to a different degree and to, kids and grants. So it's education is so important, but it's just so expensive. I can't afford it anymore. I don't know. It's hard. I hope so. Yep. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because the Christmas program is about to start. And
Thank you.
3 of my kids are in it. So. Thank you so much, guys. Happy birthday.
He's been opening it for us.
So did I.
Where?
In Hillsborough. In Hillsborough. I've been round Fort and Fargo.